It's time for another update on my goal towards getting off direct use of fossil fuels. Anyone who's been watching this series of videos will know that I've managed to do most things except my heating. The heating was the last thing left on the list, and then I could get my gas cut off. And I think at the end of my last video I basically had left it in a position where I was getting a couple of quotes and was hoping to get the gas cut off soon after that. So what's happened? Well, it hasn't all gone according to plan, let's just say that. Quite a lot has happened. Where to start? So I did get a couple of companies to come out to give me quotes, including Simon from the Urban Plumbers channel. He had a good look round, and the position that I wanted to have the heat pump, which was at the side of the house, he didn't think would work there because it's so narrow. He thought the heat pump would be sitting basically in a pool of cold air, and it would just keep going through a defrost cycle all the time, which would make it very inefficient. So it couldn't go sort of down the side of the house, on the south facing side of the house, which is where I originally wanted it. And we looked at the opposite side of the house, which is the north facing side, but that is equally as narrow and basically suffers the same problem. There's nowhere for the cold air coming out of the heat pump to go, and so it would just create a big pool of cold air. We looked at underneath the kitchen window, but again, same problem. Because my garden is like this, the small amount of space from the back of the house to where the garden starts to rise up, again, creates too small an area, and would just create a pool of cold air that had nowhere to go. So it looked like we were really stuck. And then he looked at the side of the house and thought it might be possible to actually fit the heat pump up on the side wall of the house, sort of at second story height, on a bracket, and he thought that would work okay, because the cold air would then drop away, and fall down towards the bottom of the house, and so there'd be a regular supply of warm air for it to extract heat from. And it's quite a big thing, the heat pump, and so I said I'd ever think about that, because I wasn't sure it was going to look quite right. I mean, it is around the back of the house, but it's still going to be quite a large unit up on the wall on a bracket. So I said I'd ever think about it, and also see what the air conditioning people suggested as well, because at that stage I hadn't had them come round to do their quote yet. So I left it at that for then, and yeah, the air conditioning people came round, and they looked at the same sort of thing, and interestingly, they didn't seem to think it'd be too much of a problem for the air conditioning heat pumps to be placed in those areas where I'd originally wanted my normal heat pump, my air to water heat pump. So, but they did say that I would need 2 units effectively, instead of just the one that I would need for a heat pump, a standard heat pump. So I'd have to have one on one side of the house and another one on the other side of the house, and so that is obviously going to pull more power, presumably, and therefore be less efficient than a single heat pump with just, that's just going to have a single sort of 32 amp supply. So I also said to them I'd have a think about that. Price-wise, they were well. Okay, so as I mentioned in the previous video, to have the heat pump fitted would require all the pipe work to be redone in the house as well, because we've got a one pipe system here, and it's not suitable for a heat pump. So as part of having the heat pump installed, I also got it quoted in with that to have all the pipe work redone as well. So the price of that full install with all the pipe work done, minus the government grant for having the heat pump installed, came out to be about the same as having the 2 air conditioning unit full house installation of air conditioning. So they were about the same price to me. I mean, the heat pump was technically a bit more, but because of all the pipe work. But with the grant, it turned out to be about the same price. So there wasn't a lot in it either way. I could have gone down either route. But after talking to Simon about it, he suggested, or between us we sort of came that I could potentially do the pipe work myself to save some of the cost, and then just have the heat pump fitted after that once I've got all the pipe work redone to make it into a 2 pipe system. So that was basically where I was going to head. So I thought that was going to take me quite a while for me to do all the pipe work, because it's going to be a significant amount of work, and we have to get a lot of the floorboards up in every room, etc., etc. So I thought that if I had some alternative source of heating while I do that, then I could get the gas cut off still like I wanted to this year, and then I could take my time doing the pipe work, and then when I finally got all the pipe work done, then I could get the heat pump fitted. So I was looking on eBay and Facebook Marketplace and things like that for some electric rads, and I just so happened to come across an advert from a couple who had just having their house rebuilt, and their old house had electric rads and their new house was going to have a heat pump. So they were selling all the old electric rads for about £500, which is like a bargain. You know, it's like 15 or 16 radiators of different sizes, electric radiators. So what I thought was, for the sake of £500, I could buy those. I can fit them in the house on a sort of a temporary basis. Just get a sort of run a temporary circuit round just specifically for those, to provide heating this winter, and then while they're there, I can have the existing wet system drained down, and I can work on a room at a time, get the floorboards up, and redo the pipe work. But there's no mad rush to get it finished, by winter, or we'll have no heating or anything like that. So I went and bought these radiators, and brought them all home, and I drained my existing wet system down, and started to remove some of the existing radiators off the wall, so that I could place the electric rads where they used to be, ready to wire them up temporarily for this winter. Unfortunately, while I was removing one of the radiators in what is the sort of dining room, part of the open plan kitchen. All the plaster fell off the wall behind the radiator once I took it off, and I noticed that the sort of backing plaster, or the sort of cement screed behind that, had big cracks in it, which was a little bit concerning. So I started to pick away at a few bits of that just to see what the problem was, and it turns out that the cracks went right the way through all the blockwork behind there as well. And so this got me quite worried that I had some kind of serious problem with the house, like subsidence or something like that. So I had to contact my insurance company and sort of turn it over to them and let them investigate. And so while they were looking into it all and everything, I was getting quite anxious about what this could mean for the house and you know, the potential repercussions of what we might be facing. So I decided at that stage that trying to cope with doing the pipe work and getting these radiators sorted, electric radiators and everything, was just too much for me to cope with, on top of all of the other stuff as well at that stage. So I put the radiators back up for sale, and I managed to sell them for just about £50 less than I paid for them. So I was out of pocket to the tune of £50, but to be honest, I was quite glad to just you know, be able to sort of draw a line under it and focus just on what was happening with the house. So the insurance company came along and they had a look at the walls and the blocks, and then they eventually decided that it wasn't down to subsidence, it was just down to thermal movement. Apparently the aircrete blocks are quite prone to cracking like that, especially if they're close to a heat source, and particularly underneath windows where they don't have a lot of load on top of them. So yeah, I was quite relieved to hear that, and I contacted them several times afterwards to make absolutely sure and say, are you absolutely certain that it's not anything serious, it is just what you say it is? And yeah, they were adamant that it, you know, because there's no cracking on the outside walls, it was just down to this thermal movement. So that put my mind at ease, and it was nice to know that the back half of my house wasn't falling off, because it's an extended house. It was like that when we bought it, but the part that had the cracks in it, it was all part, you know, in the extension, and I just had visions that the extension was effectively falling down, which wouldn't have been good. So yeah, it was quite good news to know that, and so in the intervening time now, I've had to have a builder come out to replace all the blockwork and replaster all of that to get it ready, and that's where we're at today. It's been plastered and stuff. We're just realistically waiting for it to fully dry out before I can attempt to remount the radiator for this winter. I didn't manage to get the gas cut off. I mean, I did actually contact Octopus part way through this story, and got a confirmation date from them to come out and cut the gas off. They were going to come and remove the meter. That was when I was, you know, getting ready to put these new electric rads that I'd bought all around the house. But luckily they hadn't removed it by the time I found these big cracks and stuff, and sort of turned my back on the whole thing while I sorted that out. And so I phoned them up and cancelled that appointment. So I never did get my gas cut off in the end, although I was close. But yeah, such is life. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. It's too close to the winter now for me to do anything else. So I'm afraid for this year we're going to have to use the gas again. At this stage, I just need to get the radiator back on the wall. Once that bit new bit's fully dried out, I don't want to risk damaging it until it's properly set. So I just need to remount the brackets on the wall and get that radiator back on the wall, reconnect it to the pipes, and then I need to refill the whole system, make sure there's no air leaks or air bubbles and stuff air trapped inside it, and no water leaking out of any of the bits where I detached radiators and reattached them. So yeah, so that's where we're at. The whole issue of worrying about the house might be subsiding and cracking and all that sort of thing has really made me think twice now about having the heat pump fitted on the outside wall of the house, which is realistically one of the only places that the heat geeks think it will work efficiently. I just don't like the idea of a large heavy box that is going to vibrate to some extent, being on the wall of the house, and that vibration travelling through the brickwork down into the foundations and stuff. It just really makes me nervous now, having seen all these cracks and worrying that my house was subsiding and stuff. I'm just not really that keen on the idea of having the unit on the wall of the house. So I'm not sure where that leaves me really, because I think even with the air-to-air system, the air conditioning system, I think they were talking about mounting them also up on the walls and stuff. So yeah, I'm really not sure what's going to be the best course of action now. Realistically, I've got to use the wet system this year, but other than that, my only two options, if I don't want to use, if I can't get the heat pumps fitted on there, would be to have an electric boiler and just literally swap out the gas boiler for an electric one, which is not going to be very efficient, and it's going to cost a lot more to run than a gas one. Even with my batteries and stuff like that, it's still not going to be that efficient, price wise. I mean, or go back to getting some more electric radiators and effectively have electric radiators throughout the house. At least then you can switch them off in rooms you're not using, and save a bit of energy that way. But I'm not keen on either of those ideas either, really. So I'm kind of stuck at the moment, not sure what is going to be the best course of action. I did just see on Twitter that somebody had put a type of heat pump that they saw in the Netherlands that looks like a chimney, that you can sort of get mounted on the roof of your house, and it looks like a chimney, but it's actually a heat pump. And I'm wondering if something like that maybe could be gotten hold of and installed in this country, because the north side of my roof is empty, so it could easily stick one sort of up there, and even though technically it's still a vibrating box on the house, it's kind of in at the top, and it'll be spread out through all the walls equally, if that makes sense. And so I think the effect would be a lot less than having it sort of over in one corner. But I don't know really. I'm just speculating, but yeah, that's the situation at the moment. So I'm afraid this year goes by again now without me managing to get fully off fossil fuels, direct use of fossil fuels. It's not through want of trying. I am trying. It's just the topography of my house just makes it really difficult to have a heat pump fitted on the floor, which is where I want it. It just the gap between my neighbours and my houses is so narrow, and we're on a hill, and so there's walls between my neighbours' properties and mine to keep them, all separate because they're on a steep slope. So that creates just like alleyways where cold air will just pool and it'll have nowhere to go. So we're just really stuck. The only other alternative would be to maybe be able to have one out the front somewhere, but I've seen some pictures of people's houses where they've got them out the front, visible from the road. It obviously is possible to get permission to do it, but even in that score, we're a bit stuck because the front room window, basically is quite low, and you couldn't get a heat pump underneath it. It would block part of the window, and it takes up the full width of one half of the house, and then there's another one the same on the other half as well at the same height. So again, it would block part of the window, so it can't go on the front even really. So yeah, I'm a bit stuck. But yes, I just thought I'd do an update video to let you know what's happened and where we're at. But it's looking like it's going to drag on into next year. But yes, thanks for watching. I'll keep you updated if as things change. But yeah, please do like, comment, share, subscribe, and continue to watch these videos. I'll hopefully we'll be able to get somewhere eventually. But who knows when. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video. Cheers.